Our next session is going to be a bit different. It's not going to be a lecture, it's not going to be a talk, but rather it's going to be an AMA. Who here knows what an AMA is? Please raise your hand. This is quite a popular format. It means ask me everything.
Anything. Anything. Ask me anything.
Ask me anything.
Sorry.
Yes. AMA. That's right. Ask me anything. And we have panel speakers, guests who are going to answer anything.
We'll try. We'll try.
I will explain the rules in a second. But first, let me introduce you our panel speakers. I think all of you know them, but I have to do it anyway. So, first, let me introduce you Ivan Vankov, gatakka. Big round of applause for him. And also Marian Marinov, Hackman. They will say a few words about them when we start. But first, we have chairs, as you can see, because it's a more informal way of answering questions instead of standing straight. And those chairs are provided by ChairPro, for which we are very grateful to them. So big round of applause for ChairPro. Okay, you will be asking the questions. We will start with our own first question to kick things off, but you will be asking the questions, so better think of something smart right now. And Pavli over here, Pavli, can you please stand up? He will be listening to the questions, and whenever he decides, he will give a book from O'Reilly to someone from the audience who asked a good question. This is entirely up to Pavli, so no bias from us, it's just bias from Pavli. And how we are going to do this. Ivo, over here, please raise your hand, Ivo, as you can see him. Yeah? Ivo will ask the first question. If you want to ask a question, you have to put some effort in. You have to stand up and you have to walk to Ivo to ask the question from there. So I guess we will form a queue. We will be taking questions, they will be answering, discussing, and whenever they decide the topic's ended, everything's answered, we will continue to the next question. In case we have like 20 minutes for a question, then I will cut in and we'll proceed to the next question. Everything clear? If you want to ask a question, go to Ivo. And we will start with questions from Ivo. Ivo, take it. Take it from here.
Okay. So my first question is, I know both of you guys, you're spending a lot of your free time researching some new technologies, playing some software or hardware stuff. And I want to ask you which of your side projects were most beneficial for your day-to-day job.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. There is a crazy echo.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you spent a lot of your free time on some side projects, some new technologies that you're playing with, both software and hardware, right? And I want to ask you which of your side projects was more beneficial for your day-to-day job.
Okay. So, because I asked that question, I'm answering it. So, when I was in high school, I had connections to both of our ISPs in Dobrich. And I wanted to connect both of the ISPs. And at that point, you have to understand we were paying by the kilobyte. So your internet plan was maybe 100 or 200 megabytes for all the internet you can download. So the free connectivity was only within the network of the ISP. And what I did was I created an FTP server where everyone could upload their files and share them with other people in the ISP. But since I had connections with both ISPs, now they could share files between people inside the city without actually paying for this. This required me to understand what FTP was, how Linux security model worked, how to shape accounts, a lot of things. And it gave me the possibility to learn about almost anything I needed to know at that point for internet. So this is how I started as a system administrator. This allowed me to gain all that knowledge.
Yeah, thank you. And for me, it's probably the thing that helps me most is I always looking for mistakes in other people's code and architecture, and I openly say that there is a mistake, that there is a better way. Of course, this makes people not so happy, but in general, in many cases, I receive good arguments why they choose this implementation, this architecture for things that I'm misunderstood. So in general, when you do that in many different projects, you start to see the pattern, how a good software architecture, how a good code is structured, and during the years I'm doing that. Actually, I think that I become a better software architect. So always look other people's code and always confront their decisions. They make look really good, make sense to you, but just ask the question: can it be done better, and how? If you are able to make it better, it's perfect. If you cannot make it better, then this is the best way. And actually, in the both case, you gain a valuable experience that you can implement in your code. So I think that's my thing.
Okay, great. I guess I don't receive a book. So next question, we have a question here.
Hi. So my question is more, I think, towards Ivan, but if you know about this. So basically, I don't know much about blockchain out of cryptocurrencies. So my question is this technology already has some other applications other than the cryptocurrency world? I've heard that the banks have been doing something between themselves, and actually might be almost as useful as the cryptocurrency. So my question is, if you can tell us some cool ways that the technology has been used, or maybe in the future something that is not known by everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, the cryptocurrency are just specific implementation of the blockchain, and actually the hype for blockchain came from cryptocurrencies, but the blockchain is much more fundamental way, for much more fundamental philosophy and way how you structure your code and your data. So the first thing that you have to understand is that the blockchain is not general purpose technology. It's really good for a specific set of problems. And when you apply it for this specific set of problems, it's perfect. But for everything else, it's nightmare. You cannot, I mean, it slow you down, it make your product really worse. Good examples are financial institutions, supply chains, data provenance, document flow. In general, the blockchain is good when you have more than one entity. I mean, let's say different organization in different countries that have a common process that exchange some digital information between them. That's if you are in that situation, probably blockchain will help you. If you are a single entity and you will use a blockchain, please use use a simple database. Just don't do it. I mean, it's like, okay, it's not designed for that thing. So right now, blockchain is used really, really heavily in big financial institutions, and I can say because my team is responsible for something like 73% of the world Hyperledger Fabric projects that are in production right now. So I have a deep understanding where it's working and what is the adoption of this thing. It's designed for enterprise, for supply chain, for multiple organization. If you're a startup that is doing a centralized project in some way, blockchain is not for you. Don't use it. Is that answering your question?
Yeah. Yes, and the follow-up was, so outside of that, is there anything that is coming up, maybe as a usage, or no, mostly about communication?
No, blockchain will not will not make a revolution for a banking system, people rights and stuff like that. It just will not happen because it's not the technology that is meant to do that change.
Okay, thank you.
The other way blockchain helps also is prove that something happened.
Yeah,
that is very important for many businesses, and prove that something happened or didn't happen is very important. So blockchain solves also this problem.
Yeah, data provenance.
Right.
And we have our first book, so applause. Woo!
Okay. Okay.
It's not that scary. More questions. Come on.
Give,
You have
give
to
me
come
some
here.
hard one, please.
Come here. Don't
You
raise
need
your
to
hand.
come here in order to ask your question.
Yeah. Over here to Ivailo.
Run.
I started to notice some technologies like interplanetary file systems, Scuttlebutt, and I see that they've been around for a few years. I wondered if you've looked at them and if you see sort of broader applications that they might be good for, or if really they're not never going to click.
So,
IPFS?
sorry?
You were talking about IPFS?
Yes.
Okay. I actually use that, and I'll explain how. So we have to update a lot of software across all of our data centers across the world. The problem is that usually the pipe between one data center and another data center is not as big as the pipe inside the data center. So having a file that is distributed across your data centers and downloading it from each data center inside is a lot faster than actually copying one file from one server to a few servers in the data centers, and then from those servers to everyone else. Usually when you're upgrading software, you have things like repositories, which you have to update. And you have copies of these repositories across your data centers. And all of your servers in the data centers are configured to download the files from within the data center. What happens is that first you need to upload to all of these servers, and then all of the servers inside the data center, which may be thousands of servers, have to download this one particular file from this one server. And even 10 gigabits is usually not enough for this. So if you have the IPFS, what's happening is that the first server that already copied the file now is serving also that file. And everyone in the data center already knows this. So the initial push of the file is, again, slower. By 10 gigabits, I mean slower. And then after that, it's as fast as the number of machines you have in the data center, which is very nice. The only problem is that IPFS actually doesn't delete files. So once you upload a file, you have to think of a way to remove that file from the local caches of all of these servers. So we had to actually introduce a cleaner process after that for the local caches of all of these files, because there is no way of deleting the file. You can delete the hash, but you're not actually deleting the file from everyone's computers. It's like you're downloading a BitTorrent, you have a few bits of the file on your machine, and somebody removes the BitTorrent file, you still have those bits there, so you cannot delete that. It's very nice for distributed, but highly distributed. I mean, globally distributed files. Anything that's local, you have better solutions for this.
Yeah, thank you.
And also you have to, it's really nice when you keep it isolated. I mean, if you put it in your private network, not publicly accessible, because you cannot delete files. And also, if these things start growing and people start using it like, let's say, BitTorrent, Kazam, and stuff like that before years, some regulatories will start to find ways to ban it. So this thing is, again, a really specific technology that serves really well on a specific scenario. For a mass adoption, public adoption, it will not happen. If these things start to happen, there will be a lot of forces, a lot of financial forces that will prevent that. As same story as the torrents before years. It will happen because you can share anything.
In terms of security, if you value your files, you have to make your installation private. Don't use the search servers, the public search servers. They tell you that they wouldn't share data and stuff like this, but we know that's not the case.
How do you feel about its use as some kind of pub/sub mechanism, or the hashing to find peers? Is that
how do you feel about what?
Pub/sub. So to build an app where people can subscribe to each other in a completely peer-to-peer way, because normally that's handled then through some central system. Do you feel is that an appropriate use of the technology, or that's just not?
You're recreating torrent protocol using that. By doing that, you will recreate the torrent protocol, and actually you will not have the benefits of the speed and the distribution and file deletion and anonymity, because anonymity is also a big issue in IPFS. It's pseudo-anonymous. They can track you. So depending what you're doing, if you start doing some semi-illegal stuff, they can find you, and you'll suffer.
And it's slow, so.
And it's slow, yeah.
Yeah.
It's slower than torrent. Yep, that's the other problem.
Okay, that was a great series of questions. Let's keep the questions to up to one per person, please. It's okay. So let's get to the next one.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Yanislav, and I wanted to ask you regarding your last talk in DevBG. You said something about Bulgaria being outsourcing company, which is no secret for anyone, I guess. And I was working in a product company, but I've never worked in a outsourcing company. So I was wondering, is there any difference from a developer perspective, working for, I mean, in a tech skill set or soft skill set and anything? I mean, is there a difference between the two? And okay, maybe only one question.
So the question is there a difference between working on a product company or outsourcing and outstaffing?
Not actually working, but more like
the requirements, skill set and stuff like that.
For the developer, from
for you. Okay, in general, no, because it doesn't matter are you outsourcing or you're doing your internal project, the same skills are required on the same level. The only difference is how the project is managed. In general case, in the outsourcing, the deadlines are much shorter. There is a much pressure. In general, I mean, in most of the times, you're not over full control over the requirements, the priority of these requirements. That's the only difference. The difference is in the management, not in the skills required for the person. In general, the good thing in the product-based company is that they are long-term projects, so you can plan really well. People are feeling much more comfortable. They are not what they are doing. They can invest more time in, let's say, premature optimization, in good software architecture, and stuff like that. In outsourcing, in general, the projects are much faster, and you don't spend so much time, and people are a little bit more pressure. At least that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
For me, I think that the main difference is how your approach changes. Because in a product company, usually you're a developer, you have a product manager that actually handles this for you. In an outsourcing company, depending if the whole product is outsourced to this company or only part of it, you have to either talk to the project manager as with the product company, or you have to actually approach the client and try to clear out what changes you want and how they can be done, how this will improve their product, which is generally not your job when you're developing the software. It's somebody else's job. But if you want to push your changes, now you need to change your skill set in terms of soft skills, just to convince somebody that you don't have direct connection with, that they have to change something for you.
Yeah. You have a question?
Yes. My question is about China and Asia and how Bulgaria could benefit from this marketplace.
Oh, I can answer that.
Sorry, I don't know anything there.
No, it's for me because we have a talk a little bit earlier about that. So for people that are not familiar, there is a shift in the balance in the world. Asia is opening, mostly China is opening its, markets and stuff like that. Also, Africa is going really well. So what will happen? China will start to invest a lot of money in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe. They will use it as an entry point for Europe in general. This is already happening. The Chinese Investment Bank now has an official office in Bulgaria, the only one in Europe. A lot of software development will happen here, and there are many reasons why this is not done in China. They have the technology, they have the people, but later on you can ask me about the details. It's a little bit complicated, but they will do the development in Bulgaria, in European Union for that. And the second thing that will happen is, let's say Africa. I mean, you're asking about Asia in general, but I combine them because it's the same process. So places like Kenya, Rwanda, and South Africa and many more, they are actually start to build a really good education, economics, infrastructure, and stuff like that. Most of the of the big optic cables are entering in Kenya, for example. They have a huge data centers that, I mean, there is no similar thing in Europe. So what will happen? These people right now are starting to learn this technology. They're cheap labor, and actually they're quite good at it. So after a couple of years, they will be cheaper and better than us. Probably not better, but they will be cheaper and will provide a competitive quality of the software development. So this is a huge thing. And Bulgarian outsourcing industry must prepare for that. I have a talk about that in another conference that began. It's a really complicated process, but there is a way how we can handle that if we play our cards. So, in general, the main driving force, technological and financial force in the next years will shift from Western Europe and USA will shift to Asia, mostly China, but also some other countries. Also, after 5 or 10 years, the region around Caspian Sea also will have a dramatic growth. Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and this country in that region will have a dramatic growth, and also they will have will become really concurrent in technology term to Bulgaria and Ukraine and other countries. So our IT sector must prepare for that. And in general, towards the solution is in Bulgaria, we keep the software architecture, the management, and the QAs. The actual work must be outsourced in, let's say, India, Pakistan, and other countries. So we keep let's say it like that. The success of one project is not the quality of the code, it's the quality of the management of the project. That's the truth. If we keep the management here, we can make successful story without be dependent on the actual people that will write the code. So we keep the good people here, I mean the people with skills, and somebody else is doing the job. If, let's say, India became really expensive or something like that, we can change the people that are actually coding. And this type of process is really complicated because you work with remote teams, different culture, people are not motivated, they are not in your interest and stuff like that, but there is a way how you can manage that. And we a couple of companies in Bulgaria actually experiment with that in the last 2 years, and I think that we find a proper management tool, a process. It's not agile, it's based on agile, but something that is working. So we are too expensive already to be concurrent. Concurrent, is that the correct concurrency?
No.
Sorry, not concurrent, but competitive. Sorry,
Yes.
sorry, my English is not so good. We are too expensive to be competitive with our people, and we are becoming more expensive and more expensive. Yes, we do a good job, but we're expensive. If you want to add something.
No, it's the same. Bulgaria is becoming more and more expensive because our general way of life has improved by the years, but it also made it more expensive. So it's normal.
Yeah, we have a huge middle class in Bulgaria. In every country where a middle class appear, people don't want to work the normal job. They want the easy job for high money. And that's the reason why China is outsourcing most of their production in Africa right now. If you're not familiar with that, China is not the biggest producer of goods in the world. Africa is. But Chinese companies in Africa, because Africa has something like 50 million middle class or something like that. So, yeah, nobody of them wants to work. Is that answering your question? Thank you.
Okay, I guess Rado wants a book too, so.
Yeah, I'll ask the next question to make it a discussion. So both of you are working in high-pressure leadership positions. A lot of things depend on you. And my question is, how do you manage? Do you even get stressed out? And if you get stressed out, how do you manage your stress, your health, those more human things? This is my question.
My secret is that I clone myself every day and I suicide myself at the evening. So that's my secret. No, yeah.
I would say that since we are in the management positions, we are in the position that we can make the decision should we be stressed or not. So is the deadline long enough? Is it short? Is everyone okay with this that we are doing? And since I told you 2 weeks ago, I started a very stressful project for me. I can decide should I continue with this or should I stop it. Since I am the manager for this particular project, I can decide this. The developers can't. This is the difference. The developers in my team can influence me by when I'm asking them, can we do this? They can agree or disagree, and I can decide based on major votes what to do now. But the manager is producing the stress. It's if the manager is stressed out, it's because of him. It's not because somebody else has told him. So I would say I manage my stress with chocolate, and that's it. Everything else is based on good decisions or bad decisions.
Yeah, there is a really nice talk yesterday about the lack of leadership. Sorry, I forgot the name. It was on that call. It's I strongly suggest you to watch it later on. It give you a really good answers to this question. But in general, one thing from a psychological point of view, you must have a clear cutting line every day or in a couple of 2 days. For example, I'm stopped working for anything. I mean, I'm for the next, let's say, 30 minutes, I'm out of this world. This is my time. I will do whatever I want. I can sit and stare in the empty room. I can go to a mountain. I can, I don't know, browse 9gag or Facebook. Doesn't matter. Something that is absolutely not related to your work and it's your time. Please do that. It helps a lot for your psychology.
Great answer. So we have some more questions here.
Hey, you mentioned Agile and good management techniques. There was a lecture before a couple of years ago from Dave Thomas, I think, that the title was Agile is Dead. And he mentioned that the initial idea was changed during the years, or just the message that they want to send to the masses, it wasn't received. And can you say something in that direction? What is I don't know, what is the way of doing Agile-like thing in that moment?
Okay, so my wife actually is a Scrum Master, and she really believes. My English is not so good, again. She really believes on that thinking. Also, she's certified on a really high level. And we have this argument with her. Agile by default, and for me that's the only thing that is wrong with Agile. Agile by default require the people to be proactive, intelligent, responsible, with really good skill set. And these people, when they see a problem, start to propagate this problem up to the chain, so the problem can be fixed. If you have this team with motivated people, if you put them in one room with one cask of beer, they will deliver without any management because they're responsible. The problem is to find this team, to create this team. Every one of you that is managed teams will understand that to create a team, it's years and years and years and years. And Agile depends on these people. If you don't have these people, all Agile most of the Agile methodologies just fail. That's the problem. And that's the thing that has to be fixed. You have to adapt a little bit the Agile by the book to take into account that not all the people are motivated, not all of the people are good, not all of the people are proactive, not all of the people are even willing to succeed. So that's the problem. And most of the, let's say, courses and lectures and books for Scrum especially, constantly talking about how to motivate your people, how to see that your people are motivated. but no one is explaining how to do when you fail to motivate your people, or you just have some stupid person that you cannot fire for some bad management reason. I mean, let's say he's keeping some secret that don't want to share, whatever. How to deal with that, and that's the thing that breaks agile process for me. I'm not an expert in Scrum, but I think this is a problem, and that's why, in the context with the previous answer, when we develop this new methodology to use a different outsourcing companies, cheap labor, and keep the management in the queue and the software architecture here, we start with Scrum. We modified the Scrum, we changed a little bit the roles, and actually we have something that is working that is pretty close to Scrum, but is not by the book.
I would simply add, check out Toyota's Lean model.
Oh yeah.
That's the right approach.
Yeah, Lean is quite good, actually, for small teams. I mean, for big teams, Lean, yeah, maybe.
Big team is already a problem.
Yeah. Okay, is that answering your question? Thank you.
Okay, and we have another question here.
Hello. My question is maybe more towards Marian, but because I'm not aware if Ivan is involved within the free and open source, let's call it a movement, Linux in free and open source, that type of sphere. For people that are not aware, for years now, seemingly every year, there's this running joke that next year will be the year of the Linux desktop. So, tongue in cheek, I want to ask Marian maybe first, is 2020 going to be the year of the Linux desktop? But really, I'm asking...
Here's the person.
All right. In my personal opinion, with a little bit of effort, using a Linux development environment, for example, or anything, system administration as well, a little bit of effort makes you a lot more productive, but people avoid putting in that effort. So will you think, obviously 2020 is the next target year, but do you think it's ever going to happen? And what do we need to do?
Okay, so I'll start with this. I think we already had the year of the Linux desktop when Dell decided to install Ubuntu on their laptops by default. And I would also say that nowadays, if you're not playing the latest games, you're better off running those on Linux instead of Windows. Actually, I played this on Linux because it's very hard to run them on newer Windows. Also, if you have older software that you need to support, it's easier to support it on Linux than on Windows. So if you're not on the cutting edge, Linux is your best choice right now. Sometimes it's even your only choice because you cannot run your applications on Windows. They simply decided, no, we are not supporting that anymore, which is nice for us because Linux is better in most of the ways that supports older infrastructure. So I don't think we would see that everyone would switch to Linux desktop next year or in the next 5 years, simply because Microsoft has its grip in universities and high schools everywhere in the world. So this is not going to change easily. If we don't have teachers that are promoting open source, that are promoting Linux, this is not going to happen. And slowly but steady, this is changing in Canada, in United States, in Europe, not so much, actually. And if you know teachers here in Bulgaria, you definitely know that Bulgarian teachers don't know Linux and they are scared of it a lot. So no, it's not going to happen now.
And actually, this is a good thing. If you reach, let's say, 60 or 70% market adoption, the Linux will lose a lot of the good things that make it good. People will start to demand a lot of things, a lot of proprietary software modules, firmwares will appear, a lot of viruses using social engineering will start hitting the system, and stuff like that. So it will be something really bad. I really prefer to stay on that level where it is now. It's a good tool for power users. The general public, the masses use Windows, use Mac, be happy. This is power tool for power user.
You also have to know that Brazil actually switched everything to Linux. So they have good experience with that, but they did that with 5 years of preparation. It's not something that they decided, okay, next year we are not going to pay Microsoft like we did.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. So the first one is here.
Oh, it's a big one.
Hi. I wanted to ask you what's your opinion about the remote work and especially about the movement where a lot of big companies migrate their teams from in-house to fully distributed ones. What is your opinion about that?
Remote work? For me, for my team, it means that everyone is allowed to stay at home or wherever they want to work from. I really don't care if the work is done from the office or somewhere remotely. So I like it if the person actually likes it, because there are people that don't like remote office at all. They prefer to stay in the office. And the only problem I see with remote work is meetings, because we're IT people, and even though we're IT people, connecting to a meeting seems like a 5-minute problem every time, every fucking time. So, no matter what software you're using, this is my biggest pain. So when we have meetings, I ask people to come to the office. If I don't have a meeting with the guys, I don't care. Everything else is, if the person is swacking at the office, he will be swacking at his home also, or wherever he's working from. So I don't think there is any problem with this. It's easier to control swackers in the office, but I would say that you shouldn't tolerate swackers at all at the office or remotely.
Yeah, just what from a point of view of, let's say, of the company performance, if you have a lot of people doing remote work, you have to split the work that they are almost independent to limit the need of communication with these people to a minimum, because as he mentioned, the meetings are really difficult. If you have a time zone difference, then it's even more difficult and stuff like that. So you have to split the tasks that when you see, let's say, your Jira item or whatever, this developer can take it from just the description of the task to complete this task and that. So if you're able to do that, no worries with the remote work. Otherwise, if you're not able to do that, you will lose performance. Yeah, is that okay? Thank you.
Okay, and the last question.
Hey guys, my name's Theodore, and I just wanted to ask you, have you ever experienced burnout in your careers, and how did you deal with it?
I'm making that sound because I have 2 really serious burnouts in my life, and I'm pretty sure that I will not survive the 3rd one if this happens. It's not funny, seriously. I'm serious as that right now. For people that don't know, I entered in the IT industry quite late, and I have a really big ambition. I was competing with young guys, 18 years old, with a couple of years of experience, stuff like that. So I spent all my efforts to reach some better level. I lose social contacts. I completely mess up my health and psychology and stuff like that. So I burned, and it took me 2.5 years to recover. For some part of this time, I was completely unable to leave my house, just to go outside. I was unable. In some of this period, I was unable to take care for myself. It's devastating. It's something that I'm not wishing that even for my enemies. It's bad. Please don't allow this to happen. Your health and your family are the most important thing. Yes, work is important. Work give you food and stuff like that, make you proud. But if you messed up your health or your family or your friends, you lose a lot more. You can find another job. You can recover from a, let's say, mistake or a bad decision in your work. You cannot recover for bad decision for your health. Some of the things that can occur during burnout are irreversible. Don't do that. The first symptoms, the problem with that is there is no major symptom that when start appearing and you say, oh, I'm burning out. No, it's something like you are drowning a little bit by little bit by little bit. You just don't understand that you're burn out, and at one point you are so damaged that your brain actually start shutting down different systems just to prevent you to suicide yourself, because burnout is a really strange form of suicidal activity in general. So if you, I mean, to feel tired, it's okay. To feel nervous, it's okay. To feel a little bit depressed at some point in time is okay. If this became permanent and it's continuing weeks and weeks, please go and see a professional. This is well-known phenomenon already. There are psychotherapists that really can help you to manage this. Don't do this to yourself. It's devastating. You will lose a lot.
I would share a different story here.
Okay.
First, when I'm teaching, I'm every time saying that I'm not working because I actually play. My work is my play, and I'm happy with doing what I'm doing right now, and I was happy doing this for more than 20 years. So burnout is, for me, the situation where you get either too much stress or too much work for too little time. So if you're not a manager where you can control these factors, when you're somebody that only works in the company, the best way to prevent this is simply to talk with your managers that you cannot do this within the time that's required, that with that stress. If you communicate this clearly and before this actually escalates, you wouldn't burn out. Because if you're stressed or you cannot finish your job, it's the manager's job to actually offload you. It's not your job. You cannot offload yourselves because it's not in your job description to give work to somebody else in the company. But your manager has exactly this description. So if you start with this, talking with your manager, with your colleagues, that this cannot be done within this time frame, this now becomes the problem of the manager, not yours. 6 o'clock, you have to go. You have to go. This is something that I actually try to convince my guys to leave at 6. This is important because you feel stressed because you have more work.